Cancer, pause. August 15th marks an urgent doorway, while 3 remaining days carry unusual pressure around relationships, choices, secrets, emotions. A massive storm approaches destiny, yet such warning isn't necessarily literal weather. Instead, imagine tension gathering before release. Somebody could reveal hidden feelings, unexpected communication might arrive, forgotten memories could resurface, circumstances might force clarity. An unresolved situation has been moving quietly beneath ordinary moments, preparing change within direction ahead. Perhaps you've sensed strange distance, restless thoughts, sudden dreams, repeated signs, or an unexplained feeling that something important is close. Listen carefully, because intuition will notice what eyes haven't recognized. Before uncovering those clues, tell me where you're watching from today. Then write your zodiac sign below if ready for our message. Stay until the end, since one final detail can completely transform how coming hours make sense, especially regarding someone whose actions have left heart waiting, wondering, hoping, questioning. The first thing to understand is that this pressure may not have appeared overnight. For many Cancer viewers, the feeling has been building through small moments that seemed unrelated at first. A conversation felt different. Someone became quieter. A person who normally reached out suddenly pulled away. You may have caught yourself checking your phone without knowing why, remembering an old promise, or wondering whether somebody still thinks about you. None of these moments has to mean something dramatic by itself. Yet when several signs appear close together, your inner world can become much louder than usual. That is where the storm begins. It starts as a feeling before it becomes an event. You may wake up with a strange sense that today is different. Your mood can change without a clear reason. A song may remind you of somebody you tried to forget. A name may appear in an unexpected place. You might hear a friend mention a subject that has been sitting in your heart for weeks. Even a quiet afternoon can suddenly feel heavy, as if your mind is waiting for news. Cancer, you know how deeply you feel things. You often notice changes in people before they explain themselves. When somebody's energy shifts, you can sense it. When words don't match actions, something inside you starts asking questions. During this 3-day window, that sensitivity may feel stronger. Instead of pushing those feelings away, slow down and notice what keeps returning. There is a reason your mind may be circling one particular person or situation. Something remains unfinished. Maybe you never received the answer you deserved. Perhaps someone left without explaining why. You could have been the one who walked away because staying became too painful. Either way, an emotional thread may still connect you to that chapter. But here's the important part. Unfinished doesn't always mean meant to continue. Sometimes a storm arrives because an old pattern is ready to break. You don't have to run toward the person who caused the confusion. You don't have to send the message you've rewritten 10 times. You don't have to prove that you still care. The coming days may ask you to observe instead of react. Maybe you've told yourself that you are done thinking about them, only to find their memory returning at night. Maybe you have tried to stay strong while secretly hoping your phone would light up with their name. You may even have imagined what you would say if they suddenly appeared again. Those thoughts don't make you weak. They simply show that your heart hasn't finished processing everything that happened. The storm can bring that hidden emotion to the surface. Imagine standing outside while dark clouds gather. At first, the sky changes slowly. The light becomes softer. The air feels different. You notice the wind before the rain arrives. That is similar to what may be happening around you now. The first signs aren't always obvious. They can appear through moods, memories, dreams, conversations, or sudden changes in another person's behavior. For some Cancer viewers, the strongest sign may involve communication. A person who has been silent could become curious again. They may watch from a distance, ask about you through somebody else, or find a small reason to reconnect. That doesn't automatically mean they are ready to offer what you need. It simply means the silence may not be as final as it seemed. For others, the message may be completely different. Instead of someone returning, you may finally stop waiting. That can be just as powerful. One morning, you may realize that the question you've carried for months no longer controls your mood. Their name won't have the same effect. Their absence won't feel like a hole. You'll still remember, but the memory won't own you. That is another kind of storm. It clears the emotional air. Over the next 3 days, pay attention to what makes you feel peaceful and what makes you feel anxious. That difference matters. If one person's attention gives you temporary excitement but leaves you confused afterward, don't ignore that pattern. If another conversation brings calm, honesty, and respect, notice that too. Your emotions can provide information, but they don't need to become commands. You may also notice that old fears are becoming louder. Perhaps you're afraid of being replaced. Maybe you're worried that someone has moved on. You could be questioning whether love will arrive again, whether your timing is wrong, or whether you missed your chance. Those fears can feel convincing when you're tired or lonely. Yet fear often speaks with certainty while truth takes its time. Don't let one quiet day convince you that nothing is changing. Don't let one disappointing moment convince you that the future has already been decided. The next few days are about movement, but movement doesn't always look like a dramatic message or sudden reunion. Sometimes it looks like a new thought. Sometimes it's the courage to stop chasing. Sometimes it is realizing that you deserve a different kind of relationship. There is another clue worth watching: repeated timing. You may notice the same number, phrase, song, place, or topic appearing several times. Whether you view those moments as spiritual signs, meaningful coincidences, or simple reminders from your own mind, use them as invitations to reflect rather than promises about a fixed future. Ask yourself what emotion appears when you notice them. That answer may tell you more than the sign itself. If a certain name keeps coming up, don't immediately assume that person is your destiny. Ask what that person represents. Do they represent love? Regret, a lesson. Safety, a missed opportunity. A version of yourself you haven't fully released. Sometimes the symbol matters more than the individual. Cancer. This is why the coming storm deserves attention. Something is asking you to look beneath the surface. Maybe you've been trying to act unaffected while your heart wants an answer. Maybe you've been pretending that a chapter doesn't matter anymore because admitting that it still hurts feels uncomfortable. There is no shame in acknowledging that. Healing doesn't require you to pretend, it requires honesty. And honesty can create a powerful shift. When you stop fighting your feelings, you can finally understand them. When you understand them, you can choose what deserves your energy. That's where your power begins to return. A situation that once made you feel helpless may start looking different. You may see where you gave too much. You may recognize where someone gave too little. You may understand why a certain connection couldn't grow at the time. Most importantly, you may realize that losing something doesn't always mean losing your future. The next 3 days may therefore bring an emotional test. You could receive attention when you least expect it. Somebody may suddenly become warmer. A conversation could reopen an old subject. You might hear information about a person you haven't spoken to, or nothing external may happen at all. While something huge changes inside you, don't underestimate that last possibility. If someone reaches out, breathe before responding. Read the message carefully. Don't answer from fear, excitement, anger, or loneliness. Give yourself a moment. Ask whether their words match their past actions. Ask whether this connection brings clarity or another round of confusion. You don't need to reject someone automatically, but you don't need to abandon your standards either. If nobody reaches out, don't assume the reading has failed. Your 3-day period isn't a countdown demanding one specific event. It's a period of heightened awareness. The real message may be about what you're finally ready to see. Perhaps your heart has been waiting for another person to provide closure. Maybe closure is coming from you instead. That realization can feel painful at first, yet it can also feel freeing. You stop asking why someone didn't choose you and start asking why you kept choosing uncertainty. You stop measuring your worth by somebody else's attention. You begin seeing yourself as the person who gets to decide what happens next. This is where the storm becomes meaningful. The clouds aren't here to destroy everything. They may be here to reveal what cannot stay hidden. So don't spend these 3 days trying to predict every detail. Watch, listen, notice. Let people show you who they are. Let your own feelings tell you where peace lies. And if something unexpected arrives, remember that you don't have to react immediately. You can pause, you can breathe, you can choose. The storm is approaching, Cancer, but you aren't powerless beneath it. In fact, the pressure building around this moment may be preparing you for the exact truth you've needed to hear. And that truth leads us to something even more important. There may be a person connected to this emotional shift who has not said everything they truly feel. Their silence may have a reason. And the next part will take us closer to what could be happening behind that silence. That truth leads us closer to the person behind this emotional shift. Cancer, there may be someone who hasn't said everything they feel. Their silence could have looked like rejection, But silence can also come from fear, pride, confusion, or uncertainty. Maybe this person doesn't know how to approach you without reopening an old wound. Perhaps they have been watching from a distance, wondering whether you would welcome them or shut the door completely. Before you decide what their silence means, look at the pattern. Has this person disappeared and returned before? Did they promise change but never follow through? Have they shown affection one day and distanced the next? Those details matter more than a sudden emotional message. Your heart may want the beautiful answer, but your peace needs the honest one. Something about the next 3 days could bring this person back into your thoughts with unusual force. You may dream about them, hear their name, see an old picture, or remember a moment you haven't thought about for a long time. Such moments don't prove that somebody is thinking about you at that exact second. Still, they can show that your own heart is processing unfinished feelings. Take a breath, because this is where the reading becomes personal. If you've been asking, why did they pull away? The answer may not be that you weren't enough. People often retreat when emotions become stronger than their ability to handle them. Someone can care deeply and still behave badly. Somebody can miss you and remain too afraid to admit it. A person may regret losing you while lacking the courage to repair what they damaged. That doesn't excuse it. You deserve actions that match feelings during this short window. Watch for small movements instead of dramatic promises. A reaction to your post, an unexpected question, message about something ordinary, or a mutual friend mentioning them could be the first sign of renewed curiosity. Don't build an entire future around one tiny clue. Let the pattern develop before you give it meaning. For some Cancer viewers, the person may be an ex. For others, it could be someone you've never officially dated but shared a strong connection with. Maybe there was chemistry, but timing ruined the chance. Maybe distance, family pressure, work fear, or another relationship kept things from moving forward. Whatever the story, the emotional thread may still feel alive. There is a reason your mind keeps returning to this connection. However, the deeper question isn't simply whether they will return. The deeper question is whether they can return differently. That distinction changes everything. A reunion without growth can recreate the same painches. A conversation without honesty can create another round of waiting. An apology without changed behavior can sound beautiful while leaving the same wound open. Cancer. You don't need another chapter that looks exactly like the last one. Maybe this person has been thinking about what happened between you. They could be replaying conversations, remembering your kindness, or wondering whether they made the wrong choice. Pride may be keeping their mouth closed. Fear may be telling them that you've moved on. They might even believe you no longer care. Meanwhile, you may be doing something similar. You may be wondering whether reaching out would make you look desperate. You might be waiting for them to make the first move because you've already carried enough of the connection. Somewhere inside, you may want proof that they noticed your absence. That is why the coming days can feel emotionally intense. Both sides may be thinking while neither side is speaking. If communication arrives, don't rush into emotional promises. Let the other person explain themselves. Ask questions. What changed? Why now? What do they actually want? Most importantly, can their behavior support their words? Those questions are healthy. You can have a soft heart without leaving your door unlocked for everyone. Maybe you have spent months trying to understand person's mixed signals. One moment felt loving, the next felt distant. You kept searching for the hidden meaning because accepting the simple truth was harder. They weren't ready. Sometimes the most painful answer is also the clearest. Yet people can change. The important thing is seeing evidence of that change. A person who truly wants another chance won't only talk about missing you. They'll make room for you. They'll communicate clearly. They'll respect your boundaries. They'll accept that trust cannot return overnight. They'll understand that your heart isn't a button they can press whenever loneliness hits. Cancer, this is where your strength becomes part of the prediction. You don't have to chase. You don't have to decode every silence. You don't have to compete with another person. You don't have to prove that you're lovable. If someone belongs in your next chapter, they need to meet you with effort. That doesn't mean you should become cold or suspicious. Stay open, stay awake. Love can be gentle without being blind. Hope can exist without turning into obsession. You can believe something beautiful is possible while still accepting what reality shows you. There may also be a second possibility hidden inside this storm. The person you've been waiting for may not be the person who arrives. Instead, their return could finally help you release them. Imagine receiving the message you've wanted for months. At first, your heart races, you feel relief, you think, finally. Then you notice the same old pattern hiding behind familiar words. Suddenly, the message doesn't feel like rescue anymore. It feels like a test. Would you choose the familiar pain? Or would you choose your peace? That question may become important during these 3 days. Sometimes destiny doesn't bring somebody back because you're supposed to restart the relationship. Sometimes they return so you can see how much you've changed. The same person can stand in front of you while you become someone who no longer accepts what once felt normal. That is a powerful kind of closure. Maybe your greatest sign won't be a text. It may be your reaction to something that once broke your heart. You may notice you're calmer. You may stop checking. You may hear their name and feel nothing sharp inside. You may understand that their choices were never a measurement of your value. When that happens, the storm has already done its work. Don't ignore unexpected communication. If it comes, let it unfold naturally. You don't need to reveal everything. Listen more than you speak. Notice whether the conversation feels respectful. Watch whether the other person takes responsibility instead of blaming circumstances. There could be a confession underneath a simple conversation. Someone might start with "How have you been?" because saying "I miss you" feels too vulnerable. Another person could ask about your life because they want to know whether there is still space for them. A small question can sometimes carry a much larger emotion. But don't assume every message is destiny. Let consistency tell the story. Cancer. You've probably learned that words can be comforting while actions can be confusing. This time, reverse the order. Watch actions first. Let words earn your trust instead of giving trust to words automatically. The next 3 days may therefore reveal something about another person's courage, but they will also reveal something about yours. Can you wait without chasing? Can you listen without losing yourself? Can you love without abandoning your standards? Can you forgive without forgetting what happened? Those questions matter because the storm isn't only happening around you. It's moving through your emotional world, clearing away habits that kept you stuck. And there is one more detail you need to remember. If this person has genuine feelings, the pressure may become harder for them to ignore. The longer they stay silent, the more they may realize that distance hasn't erased the connection. Something could push them toward a choice. That choice might be reaching out, it might be telling the truth, it might be letting go. Either way, clarity is movement. So as August 15th turns toward the next few days, don't spend every hour waiting for your phone. Take care of your space. Do something that brings your mind back to the present. Let your energy belong to you. If a message comes, you'll be ready. If an apology arrives, you'll be able to judge it clearly. If nothing happens, you'll still be moving forward. And that is exactly why this storm doesn't need to frighten you. The pressure may be preparing you for a moment when you finally see who is willing to stand beside you, who only misses the comfort you provided, and who has genuinely grown. But there is an even deeper layer waiting beneath that realization. The biggest shift may not come from the person you've been thinking about at all. It may come from one truth you have been avoiding. And once you face it, the entire meaning of these 3 days can change. And once you face it, the entire meaning of these 3 days can change. The biggest revelation may be this. You have been waiting for someone else to give you permission to move forward. You may have believed that one message, one apology, one confession, or one final conversation would finally settle everything inside your heart. Yet Cancer, what if closure doesn't arrive from them? What if it arrives when you realize that your future cannot depend on somebody else's decision? For a while, you may feel like the storm is taking something away. A dream may crack, an expectation may fall apart. Someone's true intentions could become impossible to ignore. At first, that truth might hurt because you wanted a different answer. You wanted the person to choose you without hesitation. You wanted the past to make sense. You wanted the waiting to have a beautiful reason. But clarity has a strange power. It can hurt for one moment and save you for years. Cancer. There is a strong message here about choosing reality over fantasy. You may have been holding onto the version of someone you hoped they would become instead of looking at the person they have consistently shown you. Those two people can be very different. One lives inside your hopes. The other lives inside their actions. The storm may force those two pictures to meet. Perhaps you've been saying they need more time. Maybe you've told yourself they are scared. You might have explained their silence, defended their distance, or found reasons for every disappointment. Compassion is beautiful, But compassion becomes dangerous when it requires you to ignore your own pains. This is the point where your heart may finally say, enough. Not because you stopped caring, because you started caring about yourself, too. That is the revelation. Your value was never waiting for someone to recognize it. Read that again in your heart. You didn't become worthy because someone chose you. You weren't less valuable because somebody walked away. Their confusion didn't reduce your beauty. Their fear didn't shrink your future. Their inability to love properly didn't mean you were difficult to love. Maybe you've spent too much time asking what you did wrong. The answer may be nothing. Sometimes people leave because they can't give what a connection requires. Sometimes timing is wrong. Sometimes two people feel something real but want different lives. Sometimes one person is ready while the other is still fighting battles nobody can see. That doesn't make the connection fake. It simply means feelings aren't always enough. And that truth may be exactly what the storm is bringing to your door. Over these next 3 days, Cancer, something could make this impossible to ignore. A conversation might expose a contradiction. A message could reveal someone's real intention. You might hear information that changes your opinion, or you could have a quiet moment alone when everything suddenly makes sense. The moment may not look dramatic. You might simply sit in your room, look at your phone, and realize you're no longer waiting for it to ring. That small moment could be bigger than any romantic confession, because waiting has been keeping you emotionally tied to a future that hasn't happened yet. When you release that weight, you create space. Space for peace, space for better love, space for people who don't make you question where you stand, space for your own voice. There is also a possibility that someone from your past will notice this shift. People can sometimes feel when they no longer have the same emotional hold over us. The person who once assumed you'd always be available may suddenly become curious. They could reach out because they sense that you're moving on. If that happens, remember what we discussed. A return isn't automatically a reunion. A message isn't automatically commitment. An apology isn't automatically transformation. Let the person show you what has changed. This is where many people lose themselves. They see one emotional message and immediately reopen every door. They remember the good moments, forget the painful ones, and imagine that everything will finally be different. Cancer, don't punish yourself for having hope. Just give your hope boundaries. You can say, I'm willing to listen. You can also say, I need to see consistency. Both statements can exist together. The strongest version of you isn't the person who feels nothing. It's the person who feels deeply without allowing emotion to make every decision. That is why this part of the reading matters so much. The storm isn't here to scare you. It's here to separate truth from wishful thinking. You may discover that someone truly does care, but they have been afraid to act. If so, let their courage speak through behavior. Don't force them to confess. Don't chase the answer. Give them room to make their own choice. If they step forward with honesty, you can decide what happens next. If they stay hidden, that is information too. Silence can be an answer. Distance can be an answer. Repeated inconsistency can be an answer. You don't need another person to explain every detail before you're allowed to move forward. Maybe that's the lesson you have been waiting for. You can close a door without hating the person on the other side. You can love somebody and still choose distance. You can forgive somebody without inviting them back into your life. You can miss somebody and still know they aren't right for you. You can believe in soulmates while understanding that not every powerful connection is meant to become permanent. Those truths don't destroy romance. They protect it, because real love should not require you to disappear. And Cancer, this is where your emotional power begins to rise. For so long, you may have measured your future by what another person would do. Would they call? Would they return? Would they apologize? Would they finally choose you? Those questions kept your attention pointed outward. Now the question turns inward. What will you choose? Will you choose another season of guessing, or will you choose clarity? Will you keep accepting half effort, or will you wait for something whole? Will you keep explaining someone else's behavior, or will you let their behavior speak for itself? This shift may feel uncomfortable because you're used to carrying emotional responsibility for everyone. Cancer energy can be deeply caring, protective, and loyal. You may give people extra chances because you understand their pains. You may stay longer because you remember their good side. But understanding someone doesn't mean accepting everything they do. That is a boundary your heart may be learning now. And once that boundary becomes clear, the storm begins to lose its power. You stop being afraid of what someone might do because you know what you will do. If they return with honesty, you'll listen. If they return with confusion, you'll step back. If they disappear, you'll keep living. If they choose you, you'll look for consistency. If they don't, you'll still choose yourself. That is freedom. The surprising part is that this kind of freedom can change your romantic energy. When you stop chasing an outcome, you become more available to real possibilities. You begin noticing people who offer peace instead of emotional chaos. You may become attracted to stability instead of intensity. You may realize that butterflies aren't always love. Sometimes they're anxiety wearing a beautiful disguise. Think about that. How often have you mistaken uncertainty for chemistry? How often did waiting make someone seem more important than they actually were? How often did a little attention feel enormous because you had been receiving so little? The storm can expose those patterns. And once you see them, you can't unsee them. That is why the next 3 days matter emotionally. They aren't simply about whether somebody texts you. They're about whether you are ready to stop accepting crumbs when your heart deserves full table. Maybe someone will come forward. Maybe someone will leave. Maybe a truth will arrive through a conversation. Maybe the truth will arrive through silence. Whatever form it takes, don't run from it. The revelation is not that you are losing love. The revelation is that you are losing the version of love that kept you uncertain, and that can be a blessing. You may cry. You may feel angry. You may need a quiet evening to process everything. Let those emotions move through you. You don't have to pretend you're unaffected. A storm clears because the pressure has somewhere to go. Afterward, the air feels different. Your thoughts become quieter. Your standards become clearer. Your heart becomes lighter. And then you may notice something beautiful. The person you were afraid to lose was never the only future available to you. There are conversations you haven't had, places you haven't been, people you haven't met, memories you haven't created. Love can still surprise you, so if the next 3 days bring an unexpected turn, don't immediately label it good or bad. Ask what it reveals, ask what it teaches. Ask whether it moves you closer to peace. That question can protect you from making a choice based only on excitement. Cancer. The biggest point of this entire message is simple. The storm doesn't have to destroy your heart. It can clear the confusion around it. And when confusion disappears, you finally have something priceless. A clear choice. The next stage isn't about surviving the storm. It's about seeing what becomes possible once the clouds begin to break.